Hello, I'm Margaret Nikkei, one of Natural England's senior historic environment specialists. Gathering and understanding evidence is crucial to our historic environment work. It helps us better understand existing baselines and how we can build on these to provide better advice to achieve more for our heritage and more for nature. Agri-environment schemes are the biggest source of funding for looking after and improving historic features in the countryside. It's essential, therefore, that we check how well these schemes are working and whether they're providing good value for money. In recent years, we're delighted to have been working closely with our Natural England Monitoring and Evaluation Team colleagues on a number of historic environment-led projects. These have all been carefully devised by us to investigate scheme evidence. We'll be talking about one of these projects today. This project is looking at the uptake of our historic water meadows options to understand where and how they're being used, and also to look at how they can be made more attractive and deliver more broadly for nature in future. This film focuses on the Harnham water meadows near Salisbury and uses them to provide an insight into what water meadows are, how they operate, and the range of other environmental benefits their careful management can support. I hope you enjoy it.
We are actually between the suburb of West Harnham and the city of Salisbury itself. This is an island within the River Nadder system which comprises around 100 acres, mostly of historic water meadows. These water meadows, we think, are about 400 years old.
You can see the cathedral there. That is actually in the centre of the city, and yet you can see how close people can get out into nature. The water meadows were in all the river valleys in Wessex.
The water meadows at Harnham undergo a special regime of irrigation called drowning in the winter each year. Water from the neighbouring river is let onto the fields via a series of sluices, ditches and channels. This water runs shallowly over the grassland here for short periods and has a marked effect on grass growth.
It's an intensive grass growing system, and that grass was very important. It was important for grazing, it was important for hay crops.
So you're kind of fooling Mother Nature into thinking it's spring when it isn't. The first thing you got was the early bite, which was bringing the grass on early. So it's very important you could have larger flocks of animals kept alive over the winter, because in the medieval agricultural systems you had to slaughter a lot of the animals because you hadn't got the food for it. So that was one reason for doing it. Here at Harnham we're under an agreement with Natural England to irrigate it during the early part of the year. It goes for a week on, a week off, a week on, a week off, and a week on and a week off. So this time of year we are making the grass grow by irrigating quite regularly. It's a trickle through the soils. The old boys used to say an inch, 25 millimetres of water is about right. Anything else would be bad for the grass and possibly do damage to the soil. The main hatch takes the water from the river. It takes it along other channels that take it along the tops of ridges, and then the water is caused to trickle down through those ridges to drains at the bottom. That way all the grass is, hopefully, if you've done it well, all the grass is warmed, supplied with oxygen, supplied with nutrients. How they work is threefold. One is the water coming out of the ground at somewhere between about 10 and 12 degrees Celsius is constant in temperature. That's enough to warm the grass and make it grow. Second thing is anything in the water, nitrogen and phosphorus and so on, that comes down will feed the soil and replenish it. And the third reason is to keep the water moving, because we don't want the water to go stagnant. If the water goes stagnant, then you get the build-up of things like acetylene, which is toxic. And anybody who's seen a meadow that's been underwater and drained, the grass doesn't look good, it's gone yellow and all the rest of it. And that's no good for agriculture. It's not good for the animals. But if you keep the water moving, it's dissolving oxygen from the air. And at low temperatures, that's a more efficient process than at high temperatures. So it's like a hydroponic system as well. But then, of course, when you drain the meadow, then that kick-starts the nitrogen metabolism and the grass comes up very quickly then.
The drainage infrastructure and sculpted topography of water meadows makes collecting hay with modern machinery very hard. Historically, this was done by scythe. These days, the bounty of sustainably grown grass is grazed off by livestock.
Well, here we've opted for sheep.
And it doesn't have to be cattle or sheep. You could use llamas or something else, or water buffalo. But you're looking for a light animal that doesn't pull the sward out when it grazes, more that it nibbles. Historically, you wouldn't have kept the sheep on the meadows all day. About 4 o'clock they would go up to the arable land. There they would be folded overnight. Their dung and urine would fertilise the soils. And they're talking about significant increases in the barley crop if you're folding sheep on the arable land at night, to show sustainability. And it was all about sustainability before fertilisers, before mechanisation. But that sustainability relied on people and a lot of labour.
Labour that, these days, is undertaken by volunteers of the Harnham Water Meadows Trust, a charity set up in 1990 to continue the legacy of this historic habitat. It takes a lot of work.
With my partner in crime, Phil, and we got a new trainee drowner called Brendan as well. We will be out here most days over about a 6 to 8 week period in this time of year. One of us will be out checking. So you've got 2 or 3 people concerned with the agriculture, up to 3 drowners. But very importantly in Harnham, we have volunteers. They're known as the diggers, predictably, and they will turn up in a party of typically 10 to 12 people. They will maintain the banks, they will dig the ditches, they will plug leaks. All those people add up to it being actually quite a labour-intensive system, which is one of several reasons why water meadows went into decline in the latter part of the 19th century. We do depend on our volunteers to do what we do, and I can't stress that enough.
Water meadows deliver on lots of fronts, socially, culturally, and from a production perspective. But what about biodiversity, and how can we approach managing water meadows for different habitats and animals?
In the spring, I'm actually for advocating early grazing, keep the sward down, and then plants can come up. The wonderful flora that we might have on a hay meadow could come up if we have low sward in the spring, taking the sheep off in April. Today you find that a lot of water meadows, their drainage isn't particularly well maintained. So at the bottom of a water meadow, the lower end, you tend to get almost a fen. So you can have a dry upper end with some dryland species and a fenland at the bottom. It's a question of seeing what's available, not over managing it, but keeping the sward down, I think, with grazing is very important, whatever animal you're using. If you want a tussocky sward with reeds, maybe for snipe and other wetland birds like that, either overwintering or breeding, then you would perhaps want cattle to graze because they graze in a different way. So it's very much on an individual basis. Also, it gives a breeding ground for lots of invertebrates, water voles, otters, and all kinds of flora and fauna along the sides of the ditches. In the spring, you can use the historic system to keep the ground soggier so the birds can probe with their beaks into the soil to get the invertebrates to feed their young. At one point they thought that fish would get stranded on the meadows. Actually, the channels, if they're managed properly, are very good habitat for fish fry. And so I think the benefits of irrigating water meadows and keeping their channels open outweigh the detriments. Today, we have issues of nutrients, have silt in our rivers. So if you put the water onto the meadows now, it drops that sediment load. We know reed beds help to purify water. The water meadows have a much bigger potential because there's much bigger areas. The whole of the Avon Valley, which is about a mile wide from Salisbury down to Ringwood, is water meadows. If you put water over there, drop the silt load, and put the water through the grassland, it might take out a whole load of other issues that we have in our water supply.
We had a drowning last Saturday, public drowning open to the public, and we had 240 people here. We therefore have that intuitive link to the community.
They do a lot of education work with children and with the larger community about the benefits of nature, the benefits of getting out. They have a big volunteer group. They have lots of school groups, and they look at anything from invertebrates to birds to the flora. Just playing about in water is fun, isn't it? It's just a lovely place to be. You can tell that I'm fascinated by the whole thing.
When somebody told me about these systems years ago, and I asked myself the question, it's a very English thing to try and irrigate a meadow when it's cold and nothing grows, and it's wet and miserable and boggy as well. And yeah, it's a value-driven thing.
Water meadows are an ecologically and historically valuable habitat that deliver for biodiversity, water quality, flood resilience, and for local communities. Environmental stewardship, countryside stewardship, and the new Elm CS Higher Tier all provide numerous options, actions, and supplements to support ongoing management of our water meadows. It has its very own action. In Elm CS Higher Tier, it's called Management of Historic Water Meadows Through Traditional Irrigation, CHS 7. Supplements can help too, including educational access, invasive plant control, the various grazing supplements, and scrub control. Uptake of water meadow AES options has historically been quite low. To try to understand this, Natural England's National Agri-Environment Evidence Team have commissioned a study.
LUC are doing an evaluation of the water meadows option for Natural England. It's going to involve some survey work over the summer. We've already done a literature review, which has been super interesting. We're also going to be interviewing advisors and Natural England experts and also agreement holders as well. So to get a really clear picture of what water meadow options are offering at the moment, if there's any barriers or opportunities to taking up those options for farmers and landowners under the new schemes.
As we've seen, water meadows are great, but they're rare. We're looking, with agri-schemes, to identify more historic water meadows and bring them into positive management too. We can do more for this habitat than we have in the past. We're lucky at Natural England, we have an opportunity now to support this rare habitat through agri-schemes. I invite you to see what opportunities there are for this in your own work area. There's plenty of in-depth guidance, in part written by Kathy, who we just heard from, available on our agri-environment intranet pages, as well as the public-facing bits on gov.uk. There's also the project report that LUC will be producing for us in spring 2026, so keep your eyes peeled for that. There are links in the video description to the Harnham Water Meadows Trust website if you'd like to learn more, to attend one of the public drowning events, or even to use one of your volunteer days to help the diggers keep these water meadows going. And who knows, maybe in the next few years you'll have a chance to get involved with someplace special like Harnham. You won't soon forget it.